Greetings, my name is Brian Jose Martinez-Soler and I'm going to be presenting the BL manufacturing process for my final project of the technical communication English course. First of all, we're going to start giving a basic introduction of the product. What is beer? Beer is the most widely consumed alcoholic beverage in the world. It is produced by a complex bioprocess and manufacturing operation that requires expertise in chemical engineering and biotechnology. The compound responsible for the intoxicating effect is ethanol. However, it only represents about 3 to 7% of the beverage percentage per volume. The rest is mostly water and, in smaller amounts, dissolved carbon dioxide, residual carbohydrates, proteins, minerals, and flavor compounds. Some key tools and materials used in this process include water, malted barley, hops, and brewer's yeast. And some basic processing equipment units are also employed, such as mash tun, kettles, and fermenters. Now we're gonna start giving a description of each of the unitary steps of the process. The step one will be malting. What is malting? Malting is the initial processing step for cereal grains used in BL production. Its basic stages its basic stages are controlled germination and drying, also known as kilning. In this step, key enzymes, flavor precursors, and color compounds are developed. Once the grain has been malted, we can move on to the step 2, which is milling, and step 3, which is mashing. Here, I also want to see, like we can see here the system that do the malting process. And now we can go to the next step. Here we're gonna discuss step 2 and step 3, which are known as milling and mashing. First, we're gonna start with milling. During milling, the malted grains are crushed to expose their internal starch so it can be accessed by water and enzymes. During mashing, the milled grain is mixed with hot water. The enzymes are activated and starches are converted into fermentable sugars. This stage produces a sugar liquid a sugar liquid extraction called wort. Milling and mashing together basically set the chemical composition of the wort that will be fermented later. After the wort is formed, we can move on to the next step, which is step 4, also known as lottering. What is lottering? Lottering is basically the process in which the wort is separated from the spent grains. Those grains can be rinsed or sparged with extra water to improve sugar recovery and improve the extraction efficiency. This stage is essential to obtain a relatively clear wort with a high enough sugar concentration for fermentation. Once we have collected from the grain bed, it is ready to be boiled with hops in step 5. In step 5, also known as boiling with hops, as we can see in this picture, we add the hops to the kettle in which they're gonna be boiled in this step. In this step, those hops are added to provide bitterness, flavor, aroma, and antimicrobial protection. High temperatures sterilize the wort and drive key chemical reactions and separations inside the system kettle. Here, I also need to give some safety notes since we're handling hot liquids carefully. Hot liquids, so we need to be careful. We need to use appropriate personal protective equipment, which it's gonna be specifically designed to deal with hot liquids. And since we're an industrial setting, we need to follow the standard lab and plant safety protocols. Now we're gonna move on to the next step, which is step 6, also known as wort cooling and fermentation. In this step, first we have the hot wort, which is cooled down to a suitable yeast pitching temperature. Then, after the wort has been cooled down, the brewer's yeast is added to the wort to provoke the chemical reaction of fermentation. In fermentation, those yeast get converted into those yeasts convert the fermentable sugars into alcohol, which is and carbon dioxide. Also, it also produces flavor active compounds that define the final taste and aroma. I wanted to give special emphasis in this step since in this step is the step in which the beer becomes an alcoholic beverage. It is also important to mention that for this step is critical to control the temperature and contamination, since failing to comply to these ones could definitely affect a lot the quality of the product. Now we can move on to the final step, which is known as conditioning and which is known my apologies, which is known as conditioning and filtration. In this step, the beer is left to mature in order to improve clarity and flavor, and the product can be optionally filtered to reduce turbidity and remove suspended solids. I wanna mention that that part of filtration, it's optional, as I said here. So some beers that you might buy might have been under the filtration process, and some beers have not. In the conditioning and filtration steps improve the physical and the microbiological stability of the beer, thereby extending its shelf life and ensuring consistent quality before packaging. As I mentioned here, being the shelf life, one of the most important factors for you to decide if you're going to apply filtration or not. Finally, we can then move on to the last steps, which are step 8, which are basically packaging and quality aspects. Here, the beer solution is already developed, and here we can package it into bottles, can, or kegs, depending on the market and depending in like what type of bottles or systems you wanna be selling to the people there. In this step, the carbonation is adjusted to produce the desired effervescence. Effervescence basically known as the bubbles that the beer possesses when you open it. That effervescence, that CO2 concentration that brings the effervescence could be added by different methods, being the most common being applying pressure to the system. Also here, the quality control department analyzes the batches for alcohol content, clarity, microbiological stability, sensory attributes, and bitterness. Here we have already give all the 8 steps, all the eight basic steps for beer manufacturing. In conclusion, as I mentioned, we give a short recap of the main stages of the process. We also give a special emphasis in the parts of the process that include biotechnological and bioprocess engineering aspects like fermentation, boiling, safety notes about chemical reactions, and enzymes. Beer production is a clear example of a large-scale industrial fermentation that is closely related to many other biotechnological processes, like could be, for example, the development of vaccines or to develop of other foods and beverage that employ yeast and other biotechnological products. Thank you so much.